The Eagles trade back and add a pick and a quarterback in Northwestern's Clayton Thorson in the fifth round here with pick 167. Fran, the Eagles take a quarterback. Are you surprised by this?
No, not surprised. And I think really when you look at it overall, you want somebody to come in, be able to compete with Nate Sudfeld. Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson both talked about this at the Combine, so it's not a huge surprise. And to me, Clayton Thorson was one of the more intriguing options for that kind of a role. Come in, compete to be a backup early. I thought he had a potential to be a starter down the road. He was one of those guys that I found to be very intriguing. 6'4", over 220 pounds. He's a pretty good athlete, and he checks a lot of boxes. You know, he's got solid arm talent. He's pretty accurate. He moves well in the pocket. He's poised, good decision maker. Started a lot of games for the Wildcats over the course of his 4 years there. And ultimately, when you're looking at him, comes from a pro-style offense. So his transition to the NFL isn't going to be as tough as others. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to pick up things rather quickly.
Yeah, Northwestern quarterbacks are usually pretty good nationally when it comes to NFL readiness. So the Eagles pick Clayton Thorson with pick 167. They trade back from pick 163, and they add a seventh rounder at pick 246, this in a trade with New England. Now, we've seen two quarterbacks go bang-bang off the board. Easton Stick, Carson Wentz's former backup, is going to the Chargers, and now the Eagles add Clayton Thorson one pick later. Again, only one pick on defense out of all of this, but Howie Roseman, we've been talking about it all day. We were kind of expecting that he was going to be making some moves and adding some more picks, so not a huge surprise there that they traded back to add some more picks to this day.
Yeah, and I think also you go back to the owners' meetings, and Jeffrey Lurie was asked about the quarterback position, and you know, you want to get back to the years where you're selecting a quarterback, maybe not every year, but every other year, and the Eagles picked up Nate Sudfeld off waivers before the 2017 season. That was almost kind of a quasi-draft pick for the Eagles because they picked up a very young developmental passer, didn't feel the need to do it last year. You come back this year, you get a guy in Clayton Thorson that you can continue to develop. Again, add to that quarterback room, mesh in with Carson Wentz, with Nate Sudfeld. The three of those guys together will make a pretty good trio there for the Eagles to go into the 2019 season with. And he's a guy, again, that you can work with, continue to develop. I thought he had some starting upside. So this is a player, to me, that I find very intriguing, especially at this point in the draft.
Yes, this is a very high IQ quarterback room. And, of course, that's one thing that the Eagles have been praised for in that QB room before. This is only going to add to that. And you mentioned a four-year starter from Northwestern. In his 2018 season, he completed 61% of his passes, which was a percentage that was improving through all 4 years, completing more and more passes each year, and threw for over 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns in his senior season. So I'm sure a guy who has a lot of confidence, who knows how to lead, and is going to be another great voice in that room. I imagine it's always that big story every year that the quarterback room here in Philadelphia is so remarkable, how these guys are able to be so supportive of each other while all still being these alpha competitive guys, but keep that chemistry together. He seems like, from a personality standpoint, that he fits right into that culture as well.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. And then also, too, I think we should talk about the role of the backup quarterback. It's not just all about, you know, when these guys are in shorts and who throws it the best, who's got the tightest spiral, who has the best accuracy. There are so many traits, so many personality traits that you need to be able to have to be a backup quarterback. And you're able not only just to be the understudy for the starting quarterback and be ready to go in at a moment's notice, which requires a good amount of mental toughness and preparedness, but then also when the starter comes to the sideline, you've got to be able to go up to him and say, hey, what are you seeing? This is what I saw. This is what we talked about all week long. This is what we see, throughout the course of the week of practice and through film study. You've got to be able to communicate that to your teammates. So I think ultimately that's why you see a lot of backups around the league. They stick for a long, long time, because if you can fill that role, you have a lot of value. And I think Clayton Thorson has the makeup of a player that can fill that role, still give you that starting upside. It's a really good selection here to add into this quarterback room.
Well, and I have to imagine that he's pretty excited to be a part of what the Eagles have, just in terms of a support system for a young quarterback coming into this league. You're going to have Carson Wentz, like you said, Nate Sudfeld, stability at that position. The role is going to be clearly defined, but competitive at the same time. You have an offensive coach who's such a great players coach like Doug Peterson. You have tons of weapons on offense, and the Eagles have continued to add to that during the offseason and throughout the draft. If I'm this quarterback, I am so excited to be set up for success at such a stable organization for the quarterback, which is not something you can say about every team in the NFL.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to hear from Clayton and try and figure out What was his communication like with the Eagles throughout the course of the pre-draft process? Did they meet at any point? Because this is a guy, you typically don't take a quarterback blindly. You want to be able to put some work and spend some time with him, get a sense of what he's like on a personal level. So I'm sure Press Taylor, the Eagles quarterbacks coach, has spent some time with him. You want to get to know him as a kid and make sure, like you said, the quarterback room is a small room. There's only a couple guys in there, so you really want to make sure that your culture, that the feeling in that room, the continuity that you spoke to, that it's all there. And so ultimately, when you get a guy like Clayton Thorson, he's got to check those boxes if you're going to spend a draft pick on him.
Let's talk about the timing of this pick, and we saw those two quarterbacks go back to back. And Fran, of course, you have scouted and prepared for this entire draft process, and I'm always intrigued by the different flows of the runs of positions and when you get into different tiers. So naturally, we're seeing now in these later rounds, there's the run on those quarterbacks that are going to be teams that have a quarterback, but maybe they're always looking every year to see who they can bring in to compete. What do you think about the timing of this pick in the draft process? It seems like the Eagles kind of got ahead of this tier of the quarterback run that's about to happen here.
Yeah, we've seen a couple guys go off the board so far here today. You know, Jared Stidham from Auburn, Ryan Finley went very early in round 4, and typically what you're going to see is now a lot of those guys are going to start to go, and there are a handful of them left. It's not it wasn't a great quarterback class at the very top. You know, a lot of questions about all those top guys, but there were several options that kind of fit this mold in terms of, you know, the Clayton Thorsons, the Easton Sticks, the Finleys, the guys that we talked about. So I think ultimately the Eagles were able to make sure that they got one of those guys in Clayton Thorson, clearly a player that they targeted, that they had a lot of faith in to be able to come in and fill that role.
So let's recap. So far in day 1, we have an offensive tackle in Andre Dillard. Day 2, running back Miles Sanders, wide receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who have been spending the day in the building, and there's tons of content on our site. Their press conferences, exclusive one-on-one interviews, also a one-on-one or a two-on-one interview, Fran and I, with Coach David Shaw, with some really fun stories about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Then, of course, another Penn State guy in defensive end, Sharif Miller. Miles Sanders is thrilled to have one of his best friends in the building, who I think is on his way over because he just had to hop in the car. He did not have to get in a plane. And now we had a quarterback in Clayton Thorson. So what do you think overall of what the Eagles have been putting together in the draft? And, of course, 2 picks to go still for now. We'll see what else happens.
Yep.
So what do you think about just what they've been building overall?
I think overall it's exactly what they promised, right? I mean, they wanted the draft to be able to come to them. They didn't force the issue in any one position. They let the draft board come to them. They were aggressive in round 1 when they felt like they needed to be. They saw a guy that they had valued very, very highly, and Andre Dillard, a top 10 player on their board, fall into the 20s. They make the move to go up and get him. So now you stay put in the second round. You get 2 players that you value very highly as well, with Miles Sanders and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. And then here on day 3, you stay put. You get your defensive end in Sharif Miller, and then you trade back because you feel like, you know what, we're going to get one of these quarterbacks that, you know, we feel pretty good about. And they made sure they got one of them in Clayton Thorson, and that's really what you want. You want to be able to go into a draft. You don't want to force the issue anywhere, and you allow the draft board to come to you. And now the Eagles have one more pick here in the 7th round.
All right, and we've got the Eagles insider ready to give us his inside analysis and take on this pick. Dave Spadaro, Clayton Thorson, quarterback out of Northwestern, joining the Eagles. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that I just spoke with head coach Doug Peterson to get a little intel from him and just to get some sense from the Eagles in the draft room about Thorson. And the word is athletic player, big, strong guy, ACL injury, great character, didn't have a lot around him at Northwestern, highly productive. They're thrilled with the pick. They thought, you know, again, they let the board come to them here in this round, and thrilled with the pick. Adds competition in the quarterback room, somebody to develop, great work ethic, really thrilled with the pick of Thorson at this point. And, you know, and again, there's no tier here. There's nothing promised. There's nothing guaranteed. He comes in to compete, to work in the quarterback room.
Dave, Amy asked me at the very top, was I surprised? And I think we've heard from a lot of the Eagles front office over the course of this offseason. We've heard from Jeffrey Lurie, we've heard from Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, the want and the need to add more competition into that quarterback room. They come through with that discussion here with the selection of Thorson. Overall thoughts really on that position going into the spring and then into the summer?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles have done such a great job in this offseason building up around Carson Wentz. Okay, the offensive line has gotten better. The run game has gotten better. Wide receivers, you've got more depth, more versatility, gotten better. They're another year into the offensive scheme. Carson's working his way back to full health. He's got a great mindset. He's excited about the 2019 season. All systems go here from that standpoint for Carson Wentz. And then Nate Sudfeld will have an opportunity to show what he can do, taking increased reps. Now, we took a bunch of reps last year in the spring and in the summer, so that really helped him, and in the preseason as well. So Nate Sudfeld ready for his next step in his development as a quarterback. And then they bring in the Perez kid, who comes in, experienced player as well. He'll learn the system and he'll compete as well. And now you've got a draft pick to work into the mix. So it's you always want to keep developing players for down the line, keeping your eyes on years to come, and that's what the Eagles are doing at the quarterback position. Obviously, it is all about Carson Wentz, the franchise player, but it's more than that, and we've seen how important it is in the past to have quality depth at that quarterback position.
And of course, with this pick, the Eagles move back as well to get a 7th rounder from New England, pick 246 there. Those late 7th rounders, Dave, it's always interesting. This is where we find the hidden gems, kind of maybe the guys we haven't heard of, but the coaching staff and the front office has been in love with. Any sense if this is going to be one of those types of picks for the Eagles?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of draft here to go. And then again, that post-draft period is so important. It's a frenzy to sign players who weren't drafted. The Eagles have had great success in the past. They've got a lot of confidence in their abilities to continue to have success adding players to the roster. And, again, when you've only got 6 draft picks, it's a great sales pitch to prospective agents and players. If you want to have a great opportunity to get a fair look and compete for a roster spot, come to Philadelphia, join the Eagles. The Eagles are obviously an outstanding football team with a great opportunity to make the roster.
From outside the draft room, Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. Dave, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you a little bit later.
I thought Dave made a great point there, too, about the undrafted free agents, because, you look at recent history with the Eagles, guys like Trey Burton, Corey Clement. Last year it was Josh Adams.
Yeah.
They continue to add talent via the undrafted ranks. And one of the things that teams will sell to those agents and to those players is, hey, look, we gave opportunities to these guys, and they came, we won Super Bowl 52 on the backs of those players. 2 of those players for the Philly Special were undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a selling point for the Eagles and will be this afternoon.
Yeah, it's true. We say, okay, there's one more pick left. For now, we'll see what happens, but there is so much to be done once the draft ends. It feels like a very long few days, but that's really only the one small portion of continuing to build your team, and there's so many ways to do that.
That's right.
That's the other part of the entire process here. So do you think it's going to continue to be a frenzy? I'm sure.
Oh, it will be, but this is what all the work that they've done over the last year has been to get to this week, right? And so, whether it's the first round, you get to day 2, you get to day 3, like you mentioned, the strategy kind of changes each of those days, but ultimately you're still trying to acquire talent. You're trying to build your team, fill out your roster. The Eagles will go into undrafted free agency after that 7th round pick, try and collect as many players as they can, as many talented players as possible, and then we'll go into rookie minicamp and minicamp after that, and it'll be training camp before we know it here, Amy.
Let's just pause. Let's just live in the moment a little bit. It is still day 3 of the draft, and it's a very exciting time. There's balloons everywhere in the NovaCare complex. I wish I could take you inside of just the energy that is in this building. We have new draft picks walking around, meeting everyone. Everyone is so excited, and a lot of that is going to be on our website and on our channels, all that behind the scenes stuff, the intro, the new tours of all these new guys that are so excited to be here. So keep following us on PhiladelphiaEagles.com and all of our channels for a lot of that stuff. And of course, we are going to be right back here as of now at pick 246. But if that changes, we are going to be right here to react to whatever it is that the Eagles do here on Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz and Watson. So we will check in with you later. See you soon.